Meg Griffin might technically be part of the family, but let's be honest, she's more like the house punching bag. From verbal beatdowns to straight up violence, this poor girl takes more hits than a professional boxer. Here are times Meg has been abused in Family Guy. We start off with the episode Valentine's Day in Quahog, where Meg finally meets someone who seems genuinely interested in her. It's Valentine's Day, and for once she feels wanted. They talk, they laugh, and for the first time in a long time, she lets her guard down. But when she wakes up the next morning, that moment of hope turns into something horrifying. Her side is bandaged, she's in pain, and Toby casually tells her that he drugged her and stole her kidney. No warning whatsoever, just used her body like it meant nothing.
Oh my God! Toby, what happened?
Oh, I just harvested your kidney.
Even after that, Meg doesn't scream or fight back. She's so used to being treated like a joke that she ends up going along with it. They feed ducks, they walk together, and when he eventually returns her kidney, it's not out of remorse, but because he feels guilty for ruining a decent day. She was violated, and yet nobody calls it what it is. Not even her. That's how deeply Meg's abuse is normalized. Next is the episode Road to Rupert. When Peter loses his license for reckless driving, Meg gets forced into a new role because Lois decided she would be Peter's personal driver. From that moment, her life becomes a nightmare on wheels. She drives Peter and his friends around as they get drunk, act stupid, and treat her like garbage. They mock her nonstop, pour beer on her head while she's driving, and even set her hat on fire for a laugh. And they all just laugh, while she has to keep her eyes on the road and pretend like it's normal. Eventually, Meg crashes the car, and instead of support or concern, what she gets is more mockery. This is not just about driving people around, this is emotional abuse, plain and simple. Her own father turns her into a punching bag for his jokes, and that's just how Meg is perceived by everybody. The next abuse happens in the episode A Fistful of Meg, when Meg gets publicly threatened by a school bully in front of everyone. And not just some minor threat, the bully promises to destroy her at 3 o'clock on Friday like it's some twisted date with destiny. No one steps in, no teacher, no friend, no one. Meg is left completely alone to deal with it.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry!
What's your name, dude?
Meg Griffin!
3 o'clock, Friday. I will destroy you.
With no one to protect her, she turns to the only person willing to help, Quagmire. And his plan? Teach her to weaponize her own face. That's how low it gets. Instead of a real self-defense, she's told to embrace how unattractive she is and use it to fight back. When Friday comes, Meg takes on the bully in front of the whole school. People cheer as he beats Meg senseless. Her pain becomes a show.
He punched her pretty! Ow, he punched her ugly again! Just stop there!
Even after the fight is over, she walks away not empowered, but just relieved she survived. That shouldn't be a win. The real abuse is that Meg has to go through all of this just to exist in peace. Moving on to the next abuse, this one highlights just how relentless Meg's classmates can be. In an attempt to finally fit in, Meg auditions for the cheerleading team. She puts herself out there hoping for a shot at popularity, but instead of encouragement, the popular girls mock her and steer her towards the flag squad, a group everyone knows is treated like a joke. What makes it worse is how quickly things escalate. During a school assembly, Meg is invited to perform, but it's a setup. As she waves her flag with genuine effort, the students begin pelting her with rotten meat. Not just one or two pieces, but enough to completely humiliate her in front of the entire school.
Yay, Meg! Ah, man, I love how these kids celebrate these days.
You can hear the laughter, the insults, the pure cruelty. And Meg, she just stands there trying to hold it together, drenched in garbage, completely powerless. It's a brutal moment that shows how deeply unpopular she is. Not because of anything she's done, but simply because her peers enjoy seeing her hurt. The level of public humiliation she endures here is not just bullying, but deep-rooted abuse. Our next abuse comes from the episode Peter's Daughter, and it's one of the clearest examples of Peter's complete disregard for Meg's safety. After a storm floods the house, Peter orders Meg to wade into the dangerous, waist-deep water just to grab him a beer from the submerged fridge. Without a second thought, he sends her into a clearly unsafe situation, all for his own convenience.
Hang on, Lois, there's a case of beer in the fridge. I can't leave that behind. Meg, you're a good swimmer. Go get it.
What? But Dad!
And for God's sake, do not be afraid to make me a sandwich while you're in there.
She ends up trapped, unconscious, nearly drowned, and Peter, instead of helping, comes back upstairs and jokes about her napping underwater. Lois has to yell at him just to get him to save her. By the time he acts, Meg's already slipped into a coma. Even after she wakes up, Peter reflects on how he's mistreated her, only to immediately flash back to moments where he shoved her, mocked her, and even shot her. It's supposed to be a joke, but it only highlights how normal it is for him to treat her with cruelty. Meg's not just forgotten here, she's put in danger, laughed at for nearly dying, and dismissed like her life means nothing. This isn't just just bad parenting, it's emotional abuse layered with complete neglect. Moving on to the next one, Peter once again treats Meg as disposable, this time by literally using her as a form of payment. In the episode 8 Simple Rules for Buying My Teenage Daughter, Peter racks up a massive $34,000 tab at Mort's pharmacy. When confronted, instead of taking any responsibility, he casually offers Meg to Mort's family to settle the debt.
All right, listen, I got another idea. What if I sold you my daughter?
Huh?
You drop the tab, and your son can have Meg.
What?
Yep, all you gotta do is sign this contract.
Are you out of your mind?
Neil, Mort's awkward teenage son, is thrilled. Meg, understandably, is furious. But what makes this worse is that Peter laughs it off as if giving away his daughter is no big deal. Meg is treated like property, traded off without her consent. Things spiral when Meg, out of desperation and jealousy, actually signs the contract herself to compete with another girl for Neil's attention. The decision leads to her doing unpaid chores and degrading tasks, all while being mocked and rejected. Even though she eventually gets out, the damage is already done. Peter's decision to offer his own daughter like a bargaining chip strips Meg of dignity, choice, and basic respect. It's a cruel reminder that in this family, Meg's well-being is always the first thing to be sacrificed. The next form of abuse is very disturbing. It happens in the episode Don't Make Me Over. It begins with Meg trying to find a little confidence. She likes a boy named Craig Hoffman, and after a bit of encouragement from her friends, she works up the courage to ask him out. His rejection is not only harsh, but delivered with arrogance and zero concern for her feelings.
Hi, Craig. I was wondering if maybe you'd want to, I don't know, go out sometime?
Huh. That's about as likely as me playing by someone else's rules besides my own, which I would never do. I play by my own rules. Nobody else's. Not even my own.
How about a movie?
I don't go out with dudes.
After that embarrassment, Meg turns to her family. She asks a question no teenager wants to ask, if she's ugly. At first, Peter and Lois say no, but as soon as Meg reveals that Craig Hoffman was the one who said it, Peter changes his mind. He immediately agrees with Craig and basically confirms that Meg might be ugly, based solely on who said it. This isn't just a parent being tone deaf, this is a father making his daughter feel worthless because some random boy insulted her. Lois tries to do damage control. She takes Meg shopping to lift her spirits, but even that ends in disaster. Meg tries on a pair of jeans and the store attendant literally sets herself on fire rather than look at her.
How do these jeans look?
At this point, the show leans into absurd levels of cruelty. The local news station is offering makeovers to the least appealing people in town. Lois gets Meg involved, and the cameraman's reaction is just as extreme as the store clerk's. Another self-immolation. Another public statement that Meg is too hideous to live in the same space as others.
My daughter needs a makeover like there's no freaking tomorrow.
After the makeover, Meg gets attention for the first time in her life. But it's not respect she receives. It's shallow validation from people who only now think she matters because of her looks. Even Peter, her father, tells her she was always beautiful, then laughs to her face because he clearly never believed it. At school, Craig Hoffman changes his mind about her too, simply because she looks different. He still talks to her like she's beneath him, but this time he agrees to go out with her. Not because he respects her, but because she now fits his standard. Later in the episode, Meg ends up on stage at a prison concert with her family. When the inmates see her, their comments are openly threatening and sexual. One says he could strangle her all night long. This is treated as comedic, but it's essentially a room full of men objectifying and fantasizing about her in dangerous ways.
Can we please just get out of here?
Oh my God.
Who is she? God, I could strangle her all night long.
Boy, that's not healthy, is it? That's the first place I go to?
From there, things escalate. The family becomes famous overnight. A record label wants Meg front and center because her appearance will sell records. Lois is uncomfortable with how Meg is being sexualized, but Peter supports it. For him, money is more important than his daughter's safety or dignity. Soon, Meg becomes the star of the group. She's also becoming mean and bossy, but no one intervenes. Peter just says to ignore it and it'll go away. In other words, even when Meg shows signs of emotional stress or behavioral changes, her family avoids addressing it. Finally, she's invited to perform on Saturday Night Live. Backstage, she has a moment with Jimmy Fallon that's meant to be romantic, but instead it's used for a joke at her expense. Their private moment in bed is secretly filmed and broadcast on national television without her consent. She's left crying, broken, and humiliated. This episode pretends to offer Meg a chance to shine, but at every step it reminds the viewer that her value only exists when she's useful, objectified, or mocked. It's not a makeover, it's another form of abuse. We move on to the episode untitled Griffin Family History, and this one takes Meg from neglected to downright sacrificed. It all begins with the home invasion. Peter hears the sound of glass breaking and grabs a bat to investigate. Meg, concerned, follows him to check what's going on. She quietly asks if someone is downstairs, and Peter responds by swinging the bat directly at her face. Not accidentally, not instinctively, he listens to her speak, then clocks her anyway.
Dad! What is it? What's going on? I heard a noise. Is somebody downstairs?
Oh, God, Meg, you startled me. I'm sorry.
Peter rushes the family to a steel reinforced panic room hidden in the attic. It's well equipped with surveillance cameras, but absolutely no phone to call the police. The intruders are downstairs looting the place, and the family has no idea how long they'll be trapped. As panic begins to rise, Peter decides the best way to distract everyone is by telling them the complete, historically inaccurate story of the Griffin family lineage. At some point, Lois interrupts to ask how they plan to eat without food. Peter doesn't answer her. Instead, he turns to Meg and tells her to go get sandwiches. When Meg refuses, Peter comes up with a new idea: send her through the vent system. Meg, terrified, says she can't do that, not only because she could get stuck, but because there are armed men downstairs. Peter's solution? Grease her up by having the entire family spit on her. Once fully slimed, Peter tosses Meg into the vent like an unwanted rag doll. She slides through and somehow ends up in the kitchen. Remember, she was supposed to escape to get help, but it seems she's resigned herself to the fact that no one really cares about her safety. Just when things couldn't get worse, Peter uses a microphone to yell at her mid-sandwich making, revealing her position to the intruders. Predictably, they grab her. Then comes the most insulting moment of all. The burglars write a note to the panic room saying, "We have your son." Lois corrects them by saying Meg is their daughter, but instead of taking action to rescue her, Peter just turns the cameras off and continues his ridiculous storytelling.
We have your son.
Meg's our daughter. Peter, do something!
You know, Meg being captured by evil men reminds me of another story. It's distracting.
Wow, what a loving dad. Lois finally insists they find a way out. Brian suggests using the flare gun to signal for help. The idea never gets off the ground because Peter immediately shoots the flare into the ceiling, bursting the water pipes and flooding the room. As the rest of the family begins drowning, Meg is somehow just chilling with the intruders like she's one of the gang. Eventually, Joe bursts in and rescues the family. He reveals the intruders have been caught, but just as it seems like things are wrapping up, Joe mentions that the men are now pressing sexual assault charges against Meg.
Thank God you guys are okay.
Wow, you saved our lives, Mr. Swanson.
We've captured the burglars.
Oh, thank God.
Unfortunately, they're pressing sexual harassment charges against your daughter.
Does the family react? Do they try to show any interest in her case? Show even a flicker of concern? No. They embrace one another warmly while Meg is handcuffed and led out of her own house. They completely ignore the fact that their daughter could go to jail for a long time after what they subjected her to in this episode. To recap, in this episode alone, Peter hits Meg in the face with a baseball bat. The entire family spits on her and shoves her into a vent. She's sent to face armed criminals alone while making sandwiches, and she could even go to jail for a long time, and no one in her family cares. This is outright abuse. In Trump Guy, Meg's life somehow manages to reach a new low. It happens when Peter gets hired as President Trump's press secretary, a job that apparently requires no qualifications beyond being a lightning rod for static. This big promotion means the whole family is uprooted from Quahog and shipped off to Washington, D.C. Most of the Griffins are thrilled about the change. Meg, however, is heartbroken. She misses her old, miserable life, mostly because in Quahog, she at least got one physical touch a year, thanks to Scoliosis Spine Check Day.
Well, I think this sucks. I want to go back to Quahog.
But we just got here, sweetie.
Tomorrow at James Woods High, it's Scoliosis Spine Check Day. It's the one day a year I get touched.
Her concerns are brushed off like lint on a suit jacket. Lois encourages her to look on the bright side. Life has always been terrible for Meg, so how much worse could Washington really be? So much worse. At a lavish White House dinner, Meg is surrounded by powerful elites and people who keep mistaking her for Chris Christie. The family is awestruck by the glamour, but Meg is actively trying to flee. While wandering around looking for an escape route, she meets Ivanka Trump in the kitchen. For once, Meg connects with someone over the shared trauma of having idiotic fathers who peaked with one TV show.
Is everything okay?
Huh? Oh, yeah. Sorry to be out of sorts. Sometimes I wish I could meet someone else whose dad is a fat idiot who once had a hit television show and who over time has worn out his welcome.
You know, Meg's dad is also—
Shut up, Tiffany.
Yeah, shut up, Tiffany.
After their short conversation, Ivanka decides to give Meg a makeover. Dressed in designer clothes, Meg returns to the party and draws stunned reactions from the crowd. Ivanka then introduces her to President Trump. Meg, trying to be polite, expresses admiration for the president. Unfortunately, this is when things take a sharp turn into the disturbing. The next move from Trump, the scene speaks for itself, and if you've even a crumb of empathy, it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch.
This is amazing. Yesterday I was at Quahog Pond pulling out carps just to watch them suffocate. And now look at me, with the winner of the 46th largest electoral college victory of all time. And I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of your board game, and your beef products, and your fraudulent university, and
The next day, Meg does the right thing. She tells her parents about what happened, and naturally, they respond the only way they know how, ignoring her entirely and worrying about Peter's new job instead. Peter delivers a masterclass in selfishness by refusing to support Meg and deciding to stay at work because, in his words, he spent a whole day building his new career. Truly, a man of principle. Meanwhile, Trump is making another unwanted advance on Meg. Thankfully, the family walks in before anything worse happens. Peter finally finds his spine and stands up to Trump. Trump tries to defend himself by comparing himself to Peter, asking why Peter's allowed to be a jerk all the time and he's not, as if that's a valid defense. Somehow, this weird debate sparks a moral awakening in Peter, who then vows to be a nicer guy moving forward. But let's not miss the point. Meg was abused multiple times in this episode. First, her emotional pain over leaving Quahog was mocked. Then she was mistaken several times for a middle-aged man by high-ranking political figures. After bonding with Ivanka, she was sexually harassed by the most powerful man in the country. When she reported the abuse, her family ignored her, prioritized the job over her safety, and then allowed her to be alone with her abuser again. The only reason Meg is not permanently traumatized is probably because she was already halfway there before the episode even started. And not all dogs go to heaven. Meg ends up paying the price for her father's stupidity in a way that leaves her physically ill and emotionally abandoned. It all starts at a Star Trek convention where Peter, being the embodiment of bad decisions, decides Meg should pose with a man visibly suffering from a contagious disease. The man, clearly unwell, reveals he has the mumps. Peter thinks it will make for a hilarious photo. And when it comes to Meg's well-being, Peter has never once let something like health or basic human decency get in the way of a joke. Naturally, Meg contracts the mumps. Turns out, Peter never even vaccinated her when she was a child. So now, Meg is stuck in bed, sick and swollen, suffering the effects of a completely preventable disease. And the family's response? Lois acts slightly concerned, but Peter's clearly only looking out for himself. When Lois asks him to bring the TV in Meg's room so that she doesn't get bored, he rolls in a broken, ancient television. The TV barely works, gets one channel, and even then, it's not tuned to the right one. That's Peter's idea of care.
Hey, Meg.
Peter, what the hell?
I don't want to catch the mumps, Lois. Here's your TV, Meg. It's a little old and there's no remote and it only gets one channel and it's not on that channel right now.
There's no sympathy, no comfort, just mockery. Meg is visibly miserable, quarantined in her room, and the only thing resembling kindness comes from an unexpected place, the Religion Channel. While flipping through the only available broadcast, Meg finds Kirk Cameron's Christian talk show. She clings to his message like a lifeline. As he speaks about God always being there in the worst of times, Meg begins to believe him, because in her world, that's the only person who might be. You can clearly see why Meg is so alone in this household. She's starved for love, kindness, and support that her only comfort while bedridden with a serious illness is a televangelist telling her God loves her. Not her parents or siblings, certainly not Peter, who's the reason she's sick in the first place. Once again, Meg endures pain, isolation, and emotional neglect. Her suffering becomes the backdrop for her family's ongoing pattern of casual cruelty and indifference. Next on our list is the episode Better Off Meg. Here, we get a chilling glimpse of just how forgotten and discarded Meg truly is by everyone in her life, even in death. The events start rolling on skip day. The entire school's off, but no one thought to tell Meg, not her classmates or even her own family. So she shows up alone and confused, like she always does. Principal Shepard points out the obvious, she shouldn't be there. Meg's expression says it all. No one even cared enough to include her in a school-wide day off. She decides to go bowling to make something of the day. But in a mix-up, her driver's license is handed to another girl. That girl dies in a fiery car crash. Authorities find Meg's ID at the scene and assume it's her. The news is delivered to the Griffins by Joe, who seems more excited about his Fortnite progress than the supposed death of their daughter.
How did this happen?
She got in a car wreck and was burned beyond recognition, and I leveled up on Fortnite this weekend, but you probably only care about the first two things.
The funeral is held, and it's as heartbreaking as you would expect. No friends or tears, just a hollow display of indifference. Even Brian and Stewie ditch the ceremony, sending fake stand-ins so they can play video games instead. It's not just neglect, but an active avoidance of her memory. Meanwhile, Meg, who is very much alive, uses this opportunity to disappear. She adopts a new identity, calling herself Natalie Holloway. She begins a new life in a cheap apartment with nothing but a suitcase and a lie. Her voice shakes when she says the name, like she's not even sure she deserves a real one. The saddest part? No one's looking for her. Back in Quahog, Chris is living his best life. Meg's death has made him popular at school. Suddenly, he's the cool guy who's getting attention from girls and respect from his peers. When Meg eventually calls him lonely and homesick, he hears her voice and is shocked. His main concern, however, is whether her return will ruin this new reputation. So instead of welcoming her home, he does the unthinkable and kidnaps her.
Let's talk about it in the van.
Chris, what are you doing? Let me out!
Sorry, Meg, but I can't let you come home just yet. I'm too popular now.
He throws her in a moving van, ties her up in an empty warehouse, and tells her she can't come back. Because being cool is more important than his sister's life. Even when Meg comes back from the dead, Chris, and by extension her entire family, wishes she had stayed gone. That is deep-rooted abuse right there. Lastly, in the episode Seahorse Seashell Party, we witness one of the most emotionally brutal episodes for Meg Griffin. One that reveals just maybe why she accepts and takes all the abuse in the Griffin household. It begins with a hurricane trapping the Griffin family inside their house. With the TV signal out, they're left with nothing but their warped imaginations. They start playing immature games just to pass the time. Meg, like always, tries to join in and connect with her family. And like always, she's met with cruelty.
Bang, bang! I'm gonna finger bang you, Chris.
Not if I finger bang you first, Dad. Bang, bang!
I'm gonna finger bang the two of you at the same time. Bang, bang!
Hey, me too! Bang!
Oh, no one wants to get finger banged by you, Meg.
Why don't you just go finger bang yourself, Meg?
That line right there, pure humiliation. Not only is it wildly inappropriate, it sets the tone for how everyone will treat her in the hours ahead. Later, Peter tries to entertain the family by singing the Indiana Jones theme loud, long, and off-key. Meg tries to quietly open a can, and the noise interrupts Peter's absurd performance. His response, unhinged rage.
Damn it, Meg, will you stop that? That is so annoying.
Oh, that was annoying? What about your stupid, obnoxious humming?
This outburst sets off a chain reaction. Meg has had enough. She begins to defend herself, finally, but instead of support, she gets attacked. Lois and Chris immediately take Peter's side, brushing off Meg's frustration like it's just another annoying tantrum. Chris asks what her problem is, and Meg opens up. She talks about the years of emotional neglect and verbal abuse. She calls Chris out for constantly demeaning her, never standing up for her, and mocking her at every turn. She wants to be treated with basic respect. Then she turns to Lois, and that's when the real pain begins. Meg accuses Lois of failing her as a mother, of crushing her spirit for 17 years, of turning her into a human punching bag. Her voice shakes, but she stands her ground. Lois breaks down in tears, actually admitting she's been a bad mother, but the victory is short-lived. Peter chimes in with a dumb Harry Potter joke, and Meg finally lets him have it. She calls him out on his stupidity, his selfishness, and the fact that he has done things worthy of prison time. Peter, always the narcissist, finds this hilarious until Meg tells him flat out that he is a waste of a man.
You've lived half your life, and you have nothing to show for it. Your only arguable accomplishments are your kids. And look at us. We're a disaster. You're a total and complete embarrassment in every possible way. Take a good look at yourself, Peter Griffin. You're a waste of a man.
Oh my goodness, that was so satisfying to watch. The insults rattle Peter, and the rest of the family finally starts turning their rage on him instead of Meg. Peter retreats upstairs in tears, unable to handle even a fraction of what Meg has been going through for years. Alone with Brian, Meg reflects on what just happened. Brian tries to comfort her, praising her courage, but Meg can't enjoy the moment. She believes the only reason her family stays functional at all is because she absorbs all the dysfunction. She is the lightning rod, the emotional dump site. Without her, the family tears itself apart. That is very selfless of her, to be honest. She goes upstairs, apologizes to everyone, and blames herself. She takes back her words, even though they were true. She's ultimately convinced to stay in a role that sacrifices her happiness for the sake of others. Enough is enough, not for Meg. Not yet. Meg Griffin has suffered in every imaginable way. Humiliated, neglected, insulted, and hurt both physically and emotionally. Across all 441 episodes of Family Guy, not a single one lets her escape the cruelty. That means over 400 times, or probably double that, she has been the family's favorite target. And maybe, just maybe, the only reason the Griffins do not fall apart is because Meg absorbs all the pain so no one else has to.